I slammed the truck door with a force that sent the side mirror rattling, my frustration spilling over. I wasn't supposed to be home for another 2 days. My flight got scrapped last minute thanks to a storm warning over Oregon, so I'd driven. All night, exhaustion clinging to me like a second skin. As I rumbled up the long dirt road to my ranch, my land, my sanctuary, something so absurd hit me I forgot to breathe for a moment. Colourful balloons bobbed against the white fence, cars sprawled across my grass like uninvited guests, and right in the heart of my driveway sat a fold-up table topped with a clipboard and cash box. Folding chairs faced a makeshift stage of wooden crates. People were settled in, and a man in a suit gripped a microphone like he was about to host a game show. And there, grinning like she ruled the universe, stood Karen, the HOA president, who'd been a constant burr under my saddle since I settled on the quiet outskirts of Amber Ridge 5 years ago. Her bleach-blonde hair was teased into a tower, fit for the Kentucky Derby, oversized sunglasses masking half her face, but that smug smirk was unmistakable. Worse still, towering on my front porch was a sign, bold black letters screaming, "Live."
Property auction. Today only. My breath hitched, my heart thundering. This wasn't just a sign, it was a crime unfolding before my eyes.
Then Karen spotted me. I'd barely stepped from the truck, boots crunching the gravel, when her eyes locked with mine. Her smirk melted away, her jaw dropping as the reality sank in. Dropped. She muttered something to the man with the microphone, then stormed down the porch steps and came stomping toward me. "You're not supposed to be here," she hissed, as if I was the intruder. I blinked. "Excuse me, this is my ranch." She stepped back dramatically, placing her hand over her chest like
I had insulted her.
"This is HOA property now," she said loudly, as a few heads from the audience turned. "We tried to reach you. You abandoned the land. It's going to auction." My fists clenched. "I've been gone 5 days, Karen. 5, and my property is not under your HOA. Karen didn't flinch. Instead, she pulled out her phone and dialed.
911, what's your emergency? I could faintly hear the operator's voice. Yes, Karen said, her voice shaking, pretending to be scared. There's a man here. He's threatening us at the auction. I don't feel safe. She locked eyes with me while
she said it. My mouth fell open. Was this real? She was calling the cops on me for standing on my own land. That's when I heard it. Sirens faint in the distance, coming closer. And right then, I knew this wasn't just some mistake or misunderstanding. This was war. Let me take you back to how all this started. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 42, a quiet guy who enjoys fixing tractors, raising cattle, and sipping coffee. On the porch at sunrise, I served 15 years in the Air Force before retiring early and using my savings to buy a small 20-acre ranch just outside of Amber Ridge, Texas. I never liked HOAs. That's why I bought land outside their jurisdiction. I did my research, hired a lawyer, and double-checked zoning maps. My property was clearly marked non-HOA. That was the selling point. But Karen had other plans. Karen Peterson had been HOA, president of Amber Ridge for over a decade. Her husband Tom was barely ever seen, and most of the time she ran the neighborhood like a queen. She gave out violation notices like candy and treated every new homeowner like a threat. When I first moved in, she showed up with cookies and a clipboard. "These are the HOA rules," she said sweetly. "Just sign here to acknowledge." I smiled. "Thanks, but my ranch isn't part of the HOA." Her smile froze. "I see. Well, that can change." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. At first, it was small things. Letters in the mail that said I needed to submit ranch repairs for HOA review. Notices on my gate demanding I paint the barn a neutral HOA-approved color. One time she left a pamphlet on my windshield titled, "Why All Homeowners Should Join the HOA for Your Protection." I ignored her. I stayed kind. I waved when I passed. Her Range Rover, but she kept escalating. One afternoon, I caught her snooping near my chicken coop. I asked her what she was doing and she claimed she was checking for zoning violations. I asked her to leave. She muttered something about me being a threat to neighborhood standards and stormed off. Still, I didn't think she'd go this far. A week before the auction incident, I had to make a trip to Oregon to help my sister, who was recovering from surgery. I made sure everything was in order, locked the gates, asked my ranch handmark to check in every other day. Nothing seemed off until I returned early and saw the auction happening on my porch. That week away, apparently, was enough time for Karen to pounce. The strangest part was I never got a single call, email, or letter. No warning, no legal notice, just an auction. Back at the scene, I tried to explain to the auctioneer that this was a mistake. This land is mine. "My name's on the deed," I said, pulling out my ID. "This woman has no legal right to be here." But the auctioneer, a nervous man with slick hair, raised his hands. "I was hired to sell a foreclosed property. I was given the paperwork. Let me see."
He hesitated. "You'll have to speak with the HOA office again," I said slowly. "I'm not in your HOA." Before he could reply, the police arrived. 2 cruisers pulled up.
Blue and red lights flashed across the fence posts and across my face, and Karen, she greeted the officers like they were her personal security. "Thank goodness you're here," she said dramatically, pointing at me. "That man is trespassing." The officer stepped toward me. "Sir, we need you to step aside." "You've got to be kidding me," I said. Then the taller officer looked closer at my ID. "Wait," he said, glancing at the clipboard in his hand. "Your name's Daniel Carter?" "Yes." "Karen told us the owner was gone, that you'd abandoned the ranch." "She lied," I said, voice rising. "I've been gone less than a week." Karen stepped in. "Officer, he's making threats. He shouted at me and tried to shut down a legal HOA auction." The cop looked unsure. "We're going to need to check the property records." Karen's voice rose. "He has a history of being aggressive. Don't even try it." I cut in. "You're the one who trespassed. You forged something or worse. You're auctioning off my land." The officer looked from me to Karen. "We'll need both of you to come down to the station." The crowd started to murmur. Bitters looked confused. Some backed away. Others stared like they were watching a soap opera. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Mark, my ranch hand, came running from the back pasture, waving a manila envelope.
"I found this near the back office," he yelled. Everyone turned. He handed it to me. I opened it, and what I saw inside made my blood run cold. It was a fake power of attorney document with my forged signature. Karen had planned this, and if that
Paper got into the wrong hands, she could have sold my land, my home, my everything. I held it up for the officers to see. "You still think I'm the criminal here?" The shorter officer took it, read it, then glanced at Karen. "Ma'am, where did you, get this?" Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. Just then, the sheriff's department cruiser pulled up. The real storm was just beginning. Before we go on, where are you all watching this from? I'd love to know. Drop your city or state in the comments. Things are just getting started. The sheriff stepped out of his cruiser with a slow, deliberate gait. He wasn't a man who rushed into things. Sheriff Doyle was tall, built like a linebacker with a deep Texas draw, and eyes that didn't miss much. I'd met him a few times before. He even helped me put down a wild hog that broke into my feed shed last year. When he saw me standing beside 2 patrol officers, a crowd of auction guests, and Karen gripping her clipboard like it was a weapon, he took one long look and said, What in God's name's going on here? I raised my hand and pointed at Karen. She called 911 on me for standing.
On my own property. She tried to auction off my ranch, and now we've found forged documents. Sheriff Doyle squinted at Karen. Is that true?
Karen tried to play it cool, but the nervous flicker in her eye betrayed her. Sheriff, I'm the HOA president. The property has been abandoned, and our board moved forward with an emergency reclamation and sale. We followed procedure. He turned, his full attention to her. Karen, I know every square inch of this county. This ranch isn't part of your HOA, and you know it. And reclamation, you're not a government
agency. Karen's tone sharpened. We have legal channels for situations like this. And yet, Doyle said, you didn't go through the courthouse, you went through a microphone? He took the forged power of attorney from the deputy and held it up.
And where exactly did you get this piece of fiction? Karen was quiet. Too quiet. Doyle motioned to the patrol officers. Get everyone off this property. Auction's over and keep her here. We need to have a conversation downtown. But this is a mistake, Karen shouted. He's lying. You're all taking his side because he's a man. The crowd had started dispersing, some murmuring in disbelief. The auctioneer packed up his stand, pretending to be invisible. But just as I started to feel like things were settling, boom, a sudden crash came from behind the house. Everyone flinched. Stay back, the sheriff barked, running around the side of the ranch. I followed him, and what we saw next made my jaw drop. The rear storage barn, the one where I kept spare fencing, fuel, and emergency tools, was in flames, bright orange fire, licked up the side of the tin roof, smoke rising high into the blue sky. Mark screamed, "Someone set it on fire. I saw 2 kids running off behind the tree line." I raced toward the barn, instinctively, but Doyle grabbed my arm. "Let the fire team
handle it." The next 15 minutes were chaos. A neighbor grabbed a hose from his truck. Mark used his pickup's water tank.
Thankfully, the fire wasn't near the main house and the wind was in our favor, but the damage was done. That barn wasn't just scorched, it was practically reduced to a blackened skeleton by the time the fire trucks rolled in. Doyle turned to Karen, who was now standing in the yard with crossed arms and red cheeks. "You got more explaining to do. I hope to God your name's not tied to this." Karen didn't respond. She just stared at the smoke. After the fire was put out, and the fire chief made his report, we all gathered in the front yard. Doyle spoke low to me. "Dan, something bigger is going on. That paper was detailed like someone had access to your files." "I keep my important documents locked," I said. "But if she had a key somehow, or if someone helped her..." That's when something clicked in my mind. A few weeks before I left for Oregon, I'd hired a young temp worker through a local ad to help organize old taxpayers and invoices. His name was Kyle. Quiet, respectful, said he was taking time off from college. I paid him cash, and he never caused any problems until now. What if Kyle was working with Karen? I told Doyle about him. He jotted it down. "I'll dig into him," Doyle said. "But right now I've got to bring Karen in for questioning." "You sure you're okay holding down the ranch alone tonight?" I nodded. "Let her try coming back. She's not touching another inch." Karen didn't resist when they placed her in cuffs, though she loudly declared, "This is harassment." While being escorted to the cruiser once the vehicles left, the yard was quiet again. Mark stayed behind to help me clean up the mess, and by sunset, most of the broken furniture and auction supplies had been tossed into a trash pile.
"I can't believe she almost got away with it," he muttered. I looked out at the field. She would have if I hadn't come home early. The sun dipped below the trees, casting a long orange glow across the ranch. The same ranch I fought for. The same
ranch my blood, sweat, and every dime had built. But deep in my gut, I knew this wasn't over. Karen may have been in cuffs, but if she had help or if someone else was pulling strings, I wasn't safe yet. Later that night, I sat on the porch holding a cup of black coffee, and that's when I noticed something strange. The light in my barn office flickered on. Nobody was supposed to be in there. I stood up slowly, heart pounding. I grabbed my flashlight and walked across the dark field. The door creaked open, and sitting at my desk with files laid out and my laptop open was someone I hadn't seen in over a month. Kyle. He looked up startled. Mr. Carter, I can explain. And that's when I saw the folder labeled Land Transfer Strategy sitting open beside him. I didn't say a word. I just stood there in the doorway, flashlight in one hand, the other twitching at my side. Kyle looked like a raccoon caught in a trap, frozen mid-scamper. His hoodie was half-zipped and sweat rolled down his forehead despite the cold night air. Mr. Carter, he said again, rising slowly, please, just let me explain. Sit down. My voice was low, sharp. He obeyed instantly, dropping back into the chair like his knees gave out. I stepped inside, eyes scanning the table. My files were scattered, personal ones, land deeds, old survey maps, digital copies of my ID. My stomach twisted. You went through my locked cabinet, I said quietly. The only way you could have gotten in is with my spare key, which I never gave you. Kyle swallowed hard. Karen said it was authorized. She said you hired her as an outside consultant. She gave me the key and said she was helping expand the HOA territory. I thought it was legal. I glared at him. You thought forging my name was
legal? He didn't answer, just dropped his head into his hands. She promised me $5,000, he whispered. She said once the sale went through, she'd pay me and make sure I got a job with the HOA permanently.
I laughed bitterly. A job? Doing what? Helping her steal land from more veterans. I didn't know you were a veteran, sir. That doesn't matter, I snapped. You didn't care who you were stealing from. Kyle stayed quiet, clearly ashamed. But I wasn't done. You helped stage a fake auction on someone's home. You forged papers. You gave access to files no one should have touched. Do you understand the weight of what you've done? He looked up with teary eyes. I do now. I messed up. I didn't think it would go this far. I took a long breath. I should call Sheriff Doyle right now. Please, please don't, Kyle begged. I'll do anything to fix it. I'll testify. I have proof. Texts, emails, even voice notes. Karen sent instructions. I kept them all in case she tried to screw me over. That got my attention. I leaned closer. You kept what? Kyle quickly opened a folder on my laptop and pulled up a drive labeled HOA deal. Inside were screenshots, voice memos, and email exchanges, all from Karen. Some even included threats. One voice memo played, "Make sure you get his signature scanned. If he finds out too soon, it's over. I need that fake deed ready by Friday." I stared at the screen. My heart was racing, but in a new way. Now we had her cold, hard proof, all in this kid's folder. Still, I wasn't ready to forgive. I want those files backed up to a USB, I said. You're going to hand them to Doyle yourself. No excuses. Kyle nodded frantically. Yes, I'll do it. I'll meet him in the morning. Whatever you need. I crossed
my arms. You're not sleeping here. He stood up. Understood. I escorted him to his car and watched him drive off into the night. Then I locked everything twice, alarmed the doors, checked every barn and tool shed. By the time I got back inside the house, it was close to 3 a.m. I sat at the kitchen table looking at a photo of my dad. He was the one who taught me about land, about working hard for what's yours. I could still hear his voice. A man who doesn't protect his ground doesn't deserve to stand on it. I knew this wasn't over.
Karen might have been cuffed, but she was cunning. She had money, influence, and a whole HOA board under her thumb. And Kyle. Well, he may have flipped now, but I had to watch my back. The next morning, I was woken by banging at the front gate. I slipped on boots and opened the porch door. 2 black SUVs sat parked outside. I recognized neither of them, and standing just behind the gate, holding a briefcase and flanked by 2 men in suits, was someone who looked far too polished for Amber Ridge. He waved. "Mr. Carter, I'm Evan Thomas, legal counsel for the Amber
Ridge Homeowners Association. I'd like a word." I stayed on the porch. About what? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. About the auction.
Karen may have overstepped, but the HOA board was under the impression that the land was in limbo. We were told by her office that you abandoned the property, that it had defaulted on its municipal upkeep requirements. I scoffed. First of all, I pay my taxes. Second, this land isn't even under your HOA. He nodded calmly. Yes, we've seen the maps, but that's debatable. Boundary lines are shifting. There was a land realignment filed 2 months ago that may change that. My eyes narrowed. You're kidding. I'm not. And depending on what the court decides about Karen's involvement, the board may still seek limited ownership rights under communal neighborhood expansion. That word, ownership, made my blood boil. You came here to try and intimidate me into backing off. He raised a hand. No, just offering a chance to settle things quietly. No lawsuits, no headlines, perhaps a buyout agreement, and you take another property further west, something less complicated. I stepped down from the porch and approached the gate slowly. Tell Karen she can buy herself a new pair of sunglasses from jail. But this land, I pointed to the grass, the trees, the dirt under our feet. This land isn't for sale. Evan's smile finally cracked. He turned and got back in his SUV. I watched them drive off, and that's when I knew this wasn't just Karen. The entire board might be involved. And just as I walked back to the porch, Mark came rushing down the driveway on his ATV. "Dan, you're not going to believe this." "What now?" He pulled out a printed flyer. It read, HOA meeting emergency session vote to approve full claim to disputed ranch property. Tuesday, 6 p.m., Amber Ridge Clubhouse. The HOA wasn't done. They were going to try and vote to claim my land even after everything. This was bigger than I thought, but they were about to find out. They messed with the wrong rancher. I stared at the flyer in my hands, the paper slightly crumpling in my grip. They were really going through with it. The Amber Ridge HOA was planning to hold a vote to claim ownership of my ranch, a ranch that was legally, clearly, and historically not within their jurisdiction. I turned to Mark. "Where did you get this?" He pointed back toward town, saw one taped to the bulletin board outside the gas station. Then I drove past Karen's house. Her husband Tom was stapling them to fences. Looks like they're trying to rally votes. I shook my head in disbelief. The woman was arrested yesterday, and now her husband's out doing her dirty work. Yep. Folks are already talking about it at the feed store. Some people think you did abandon the place. That part stung, even after 5 years of quiet living, helping neighbors with repairs, attending community meetings when invited, even donating during the tornado fundraiser last spring. Some still believed Karen's lies over my years of loyalty. I needed a plan. "All right," I said. "We go to the meeting?" Mark raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "It'll be you versus a room full of people who probably already made up their minds. Let them try to stare me down. They want to vote? Fine. I'll show them what real ownership looks like." For the next 48 hours, I prepared. I printed maps, tax records, photos, and video footage of the original land survey that showed my boundaries were clearly outside HOA lines. Kyle surprisingly kept his word. He handed over his files to Sheriff Doyle and wrote a statement detailing how Karen had used him to fake documents. Doyle told me it was enough to bring formal charges, but the court system would take weeks. And that vote that was happening Tuesday at 6 p.m. And if I didn't show up prepared, they might use that vote to file some fake emergency claim. Even if it was garbage legally, it would tie things up in red tape for months, maybe years. I wasn't going to let that happen. Tuesday evening arrived faster than I expected. Mark and I drove together in his truck, pulling up to the Amber Ridge Clubhouse at exactly 5:58 p.m. The parking lot was full. SUVs, golf carts, even a few folks, in folding chairs out front like it was a summer festival. Inside it was packed. Dozens of residents, HOA board members, even a few lawyers in suits, sat around a long table lined with pictures of lemonade and stacks of paper. At the head of the table sat Tom Peterson, Karen's husband. He had the same smirk she wore, but less charm. He wore a button-down shirt 2 sizes too tight and tapped a gavel to call the meeting to order. "We'll begin with item 1, HOA claim to adjacent property listed under Daniel Carter," he said smoothly. The room quieted. "Before we vote," I said, stepping forward, "I'd like to say a few words." Tom sighed. "This is an HOA meeting, Mr. Carter. You're not a registered member. You're voting on my land. I have a right to respond." Tom hesitated. A few murmurs from the crowd. "Let him speak," someone muttered. "Yeah, he deserves to defend himself," said another. Tom rolled his eyes. "Fine, 5 minutes." I stepped up to the center, holding up a thick binder. "I am not part of your HOA. This ranch," I said, flipping to the map, "has been outside your boundaries since the HOA was formed. Here's the zoning record. Here's the county seal. Here's the tax paperwork showing I pay directly to the county, not to Amber Ridge." A few folks nodded. I turned the page. "This here is a photo of my deed signed by the last owner. And this," I said, clicking a small remote, "is security footage from 3 days ago showing your President Karen attempting to sell my land at auction with forged documents." Gasps from the back. "She was arrested," I added. "And we've got proof that one of your own board members helped her." All eyes turned to Tom. He shifted in his seat. "And if you still think you have a right to vote on property that doesn't belong to you," I said, slapping the table, "then I'll see every one of you in court." Silence until someone in the back stood up. "Tom, is this true?" A second voice. "Karen said he abandoned it, but if he's got all this proof, why are we even here?" Tom tried to maintain control. "The HOA bylaws allow us to reclaim neglected land."
"It wasn't neglected," I barked. "I was gone 5 days to help my sister after surgery. That's not neglect. That's called being human." The room erupted. People shouted over each other. Some were angry at the board. Others defended Karen. A few seemed confused.
But one thing was clear. The room was no longer on Tom's side. That's when he lost it. "You think you're better than the rest of us because you've got a ranch?" Tom shouted. "Because you served in the military. You don't follow our rules. You never did." I stared him down. "You're right. I don't follow your rules. I follow the law." The gavel slammed down again and again as Tom yelled for order, but it was too late. Someone had already stood up and demanded the vote be cancelled, and someone else shouted. I moved to remove Tom Peterson from the board. He knew what Karen was doing. It was chaos. I turned to leave. Mark chuckled beside me. "You really lit the place on fire." "Not yet," I muttered. "But maybe soon." We got back to the ranch just after ATP.
It felt like the tide was turning, but as I pulled into the driveway, my phone buzzed. Sheriff Doyle. Hey, Dan, he said, his voice tight. You still at home? Just got back. I need you to listen carefully. Karen made bail 20 minutes ago.
I stiffened. What? She posted bail using her sister's account, and we just got word she's been spotted heading toward your property. My mouth went dry. Mark saw my face and whispered, What's wrong? I covered. The receiver. She's coming here. Back on the phone, I said, You sending someone? We're already en route. Doyle said, Don't engage her, just stay inside. But it was too late. From the distance, headlights cut through the trees. A black Range Rover speeding down the ranch road. The tires screeched as the black Range Rover came to a violent stop near the front of the ranch. The headlights blasted across the porch, flooding the deck in blinding white. Mark and I ducked behind the wooden posts as the engine roared. Karen. She swung the car door open so fast it nearly bounced back at her. Still dressed in the same designer blazer from the day of the auction, now wrinkled and stained. She looked nothing like the composed HOA queen she once was. Her hair was messy, her eyes wild, and in her hand she held a folder. She waved it in the air like a trophy. "I knew you'd be behind this," she screamed. "You think you've won? This
isn't over," Mark whispered to me. "We should stay inside like Doyle said." But I was done hiding.
I stepped out from behind the post and walked slowly down the porch steps. "Karen, you need to leave right now. The sheriff is on his way." She marched closer, not afraid. "Oh, I know he is. I called him myself. You assaulted me, Dan. You trespassed."
"On HOA business. You and your little friend here. You're going to jail." I stared at her in disbelief. "You broke into my property. You tried to sell my land. You forged documents, and I'm the criminal." She shoved the folder toward me. "This is a new claim. I filed it an hour ago at the county office. Emergency injunction.
This land is officially under HOA review until the court decides." I didn't take the folder. I didn't need to because, right then, flashing red and blue lights illuminated the entire front field. 3 sheriff cruisers and a county vehicle rolled. In behind her Range Rover, Karen turned, her expression flickering from smug to shaken in seconds. Sheriff Doyle stepped out first, followed by Deputy Martinez and another officer I didn't recognize. Doyle didn't even hesitate. "Karen Peterson," he said sternly, "step away from Mr. Carter, hands where I can see them." Karen backed up. "Sheriff, I'm the victim here. He and that boy Kyle, they tricked me. They forged my signature. I'm pressing charges." Doyle ignored her rant. "We've reviewed the documents, the ones from your computer, the ones Kyle provided. We've traced the metadata. It all points to you." Karen's lips trembled. "That's not possible. That can't. We also have you on voice memos instructing someone to create forged deeds. We have bank transfers and that injunction you just filed." He held up his phone. "It's already flagged, rejected on arrival." "No," she whispered, backing toward her car. "You're all lying." Doyle signaled the deputies. "Place her under arrest. This time, no bail." Karen screamed. "You can't do this to me. I built this community. I made this place beautiful. I protected you all." The officers restrained her and read her rights as she thrashed and shouted, "I'll sue every single one of you. You'll see. This isn't over." She was shoved into the cruiser. The door slammed shut. The night was quiet again. Sheriff Doyle walked up to me, sighing. "She's facing multiple counts now. Fraud, attempted property theft, filing false claims, tampering with county records. Could be serious time." I nodded. "She won't be back." Doyle looked at the dark barn behind me. "Just in case, upgrade your security. Some of her supporters might try to cause trouble. I already installed cameras, I said, to back. He smiled. Good. Smart move. Before leaving, he turned to Mark and added, "You two watch your back." We both stood on the porch as the cruisers pulled away. Karen was finally gone, or so we thought. The next morning, the sun rose slow and golden over the ranch. I brewed 2 mugs of strong black coffee and handed one to Mark. It felt like the first calm moment in days. "Think that's the end of it?" Mark asked. I took a sip. It better be. But my peace didn't last long. An email popped up on my phone from the county land office. Subject line: Urgent response requested. Claim filed on Ranch Access Road. I frowned and opened it. Apparently, someone, an unnamed HOA member, had filed a new claim, not on the ranch itself, but on the easement road leading to it. They were arguing that the road had originally been public HOA property and was never officially transferred with the ranch sale. If successful, it would block my only access to the county road. My land would be landlocked. I stared at the screen, mouth dry. "They're trying again," I said. Mark looked up. "What now?" "They're not coming for the ranch this time," I said slowly. "They're coming for the road." I sat frozen on the porch, gripping the phone like it might explode in my hand. The HOA had just pivoted their attack, no longer targeting the ranch directly, but now claiming they owned the easement road that connected my ranch to the public highway. Without that road, my land would be practically inaccessible. I wouldn't be able to drive a tractor through, let alone bring in feed equipment or emergency services. "They're playing dirty," I muttered. Mark leaned over, reading the email. "That road's been here longer than the HOA itself." "Exactly," I said. "But now they're trying to say it was never officially transferred with the property, that it's still technically part of Amber Ridge." My jaw tightened. First Karen, now the board. It never ends. But I wasn't going to let them win. Not like this. That afternoon, I drove straight to the county office with every file I had on the road, deeds, maps, even old photos from when the previous owner, a retired cattleman named Everett Malone, built that gravel path himself with his grandsons. The road was carved from his own land using his own hands. The clerk at the property records desk, Mrs. Hampton, adjusted her glasses as I placed the thick binder in front of her. "This should be everything," I said. The road was part of the original parcel. Karen and the HOA have no claim to it. She clicked through her computer and pulled up the most recent filing. "I see the petition from the HOA," she said. "Filed by a board member named Stacy Mullins. She's asking for an emergency review of the easement based on historical community usage." I laughed. "You mean the same people who tried to sell my home last week? That community usage?" Mrs. Hampton nodded. "I'll escalate this to the zoning board, but you may want to get a property lawyer involved just to be safe." "Already on it," I replied. I didn't waste time. I called Angela Burke, a firecracker of a lawyer based in Houston who specialized in land disputes and HOA overreach. I'd met her during a seminar a few years back and kept her card in my wallet just in case. When I told her what was going on, she whistled. "They're trying to choke you out without touching your house," she said. "Classic move. Can they win?" "They could if they get 3 things: historical use records, a weak county board, and a neighbor willing to lie for them." I sighed. I've got a few neighbors like that. "Well," she said, "then we bring ammo." Angela got to work immediately, subpoenaing the HOA's filings, getting the original blueprints from Everett Malone's estate, and pulling Up-county survey maps from 30 years ago that proved the easement was never public property. But just when I thought I had a shot at peace again that night, while checking the new camera footage, I saw something that made my skin crawl. At exactly 1:42 a.m., a dark figure in a hoodie crept up the gravel road toward the ranch gate. He didn't try to break in, but he planted a sign in the dirt. I paused the video and zoomed in. The sign read, "Private Road, HOA Property. Trespassers will be prosecuted." My blood boiled. They were testing me again, trying to stir fear. Assert, control, create confusion about who owned what. But this time, I had footage, timestamps, a printed sign installed illegally. I called Angela immediately. "I've got something." By morning, she had already sent a cease and desist letter to the Amber Ridge HOA board. She also filed a harassment complaint and requested a temporary injunction on any further HOA actions targeting my ranch. Meanwhile, Sheriff Doyle returned to the property. "You know who planted the sign?" he asked. "Camera caught him," I said, showing the screen. "That's Ben Pritchard, HOA treasurer." Doyle whistled. "He's got a rap sheet, misdemeanors mostly, but this planting fake signs on someone else's land, that's criminal misrepresentation." We walked together down the gravel path approaching the sign. Doyle snapped a photo of it and yanked it from the ground. "Keep this," he said. "Could help in court." Later that week, Angela arranged a private meeting between me, the county surveyor, and the head of the zoning board. We stood out by the gravel road with old maps and a drone overhead. "This road," Angela said, tapping a point on the survey map, "was built and maintained by the Malone family for over 40 years. It was included in the parcel transfer when Daniel purchased the ranch." The county official nodded. "And you've got tax records showing Dan paid for road upkeep." "Every year," I added, handing over receipts for gravel, drainage repairs, and snow clearance. "Then it's yours," the official said. "That road's yours." Angela grinned. "Then file it." An hour later, it was official. The road was legally recognized as private property belonging to me. The HOA had lost again, but they didn't take the news quietly. That same evening, Mark and I were checking the fencing near the west side of the property when we heard it. A loud bang. Then another. We dropped everything and ran back toward the house. Smoke. The shed behind my workshop, the one that stored tools and spare fencing wire, was on fire again. Mark grabbed the hose. I ran for the extinguisher, but just like last time, it burned. Fast and hard, almost like it had been helped. By the time we got it out, half the structure was gone. And on the wall, scrolled in spray paint, were the words, "Sell or burn." I stood in the ashes, heart pounding. They were escalating. This wasn't just about power anymore. This was war. I stood in the charred ruins of my shed, the smell of burnt wood thick in the air, my fists clenched at my sides. The message, "Sell or burn," was still fresh. The black spray paint barely dry. This wasn't petty anymore. This was criminal intimidation. Mark stood next to me, breathing hard. His jeans were smudged with ash. "They're not going to stop, are they?" I shook my head slowly. "Not until they either own this ranch or destroy it." We called the sheriff immediately. Within the hour, Sheriff Doyle arrived with a fire marshal and a crime scene tech. They photographed everything, the footprints, the scorched metal, the spray-painted message. Doyle's jaw tightened the moment he saw the graffiti. "They want to play arson now," he said. All right, no more warnings. This just became felony territory. The fire marshal nodded. "We found evidence of an accelerant. This wasn't random. This was planned." I glanced toward the trees at the edge of the ranch, the same place Kyle said he saw people running after the first fire. I suddenly wondered how many of them were still lurking, watching me from behind the brush, waiting to strike.
Again.
Doyle turned to me. "You got cameras now, right?" "Yeah." "And this time I caught them." He raised his brows. "You did?" I nodded and led him into the house, where I pulled up the footage from just after midnight. There it was, clear as day. A figure with a hoodie dragging a red gas can, lighting the fire behind the shed. As the flames started, the person turned, lifting their face toward the camera for just 1 second. It was Ben Pritchard. Again, I paused it. "That's your guy," Doyle whistled. "He's HOA treasurer, Karen's closest ally." Angela, my lawyer, arrived a few hours later. We played her the footage, showed her the photos, the messages, the signatures. She didn't hesitate. "I'm filing a restraining order against every member of the HOA board who's had contact with you," she said. "And I'm pushing for charges not just against Ben, but the HOA corporately. They enabled this." I nodded. "Let's take them down." Over the next 2 weeks, Angela went on the offensive. She filed suit after suit: fraud, harassment, arson, property theft, forgery. She requested a full audit of the HOA's finances and communications. She demanded access to board meeting minutes and private memos. It wasn't long before HOA members started resigning, some quietly, others in public shame. Karen, still in jail awaiting trial, was hit with 5 more felony charges. Ben was arrested and denied bail. And Tom Peterson, Karen's husband, was caught trying to shred HOA documents from their garage, caught red-handed on a neighbor's Ring camera. Angela leaked everything to the local paper. By the end of the month, the headline read, "HOA Board
Implodes amid ranch scandal and arson probe." Suddenly, everyone knew the truth. Neighbors started knocking on my door, offering apologies.
Some brought food, others offered help fixing the shed or repainting fences. For the first time in weeks, I could feel the community shifting, not against me, but for me. A few weeks later, the final court hearing was held. Angela and I stood in front of a judge in a packed courtroom. The ranch's easement was officially granted full private status. The auction was declared fraudulent. Karen's forged documents were entered into evidence, and the HOA's petition for land annexation permanently dismissed. The judge didn't hold back. In all my years, I've never seen such a blatant abuse of power by a neighborhood board. This is not how homeowners associations are meant to operate. This is harassment. Outside the courthouse, reporters tried to talk to me. I gave one statement. I didn't fight this hard just for myself. I fought so no one else in this county gets bullied out of their home. Angela patted me on the back. "You did good, Dan." Life slowly returned to normal on the ranch. The fields grew green again. The new shed, rebuilt with Mark's help and donations from grateful neighbors, stood taller and stronger than the last. The cameras stayed up, and so did a new sign at the front gate. "Private ranch, not HOA property trespassers, will be prosecuted." Owner Daniel Carter, U.S. veteran, and just below it in smaller print, "We don't sell, we don't run." Mark chuckled the day I put it up. Think it'll scare them off? I looked out across my land, the same land I nearly lost, and smiled. "It's not meant to scare," I said. "It's a reminder. A reminder that you can't steal what someone earned with hard work. That titles don't make you powerful, truth does, and that even when everyone else backs away, one man who stands firm on his land is stronger than a dozen who lie to take it." So, if you're ever driving down Route 9 outside Amber Ridge and you see a white fence with a sign that reads, "We don't sell, we don't run," you'll know whose land You're passing and you'll know the HOA learned the hard way. Never mess with the wrong rancher.